Hi everyone. Today we're going to use Night Boat to Freedom to analyze our characters and how the time period in which our historical fiction books affect our characters' personality and our characters' behavior. I want you to make sure that while you're reading your historical fiction books that you're really getting to know your characters. Like at the beginning of the year, I received a class list of everyone's name. And I read your names, but I didn't really know what you were like. Now that I've gotten to know your personalities, what you like, what you dislike, your academic strengths and your weaknesses, you're not just a list of names to me anymore. It's like we get to know each other. We can also get to know the characters in our historical fiction books. So today I want to teach you that great readers make sure that they get to know the characters in their books and they try to understand why their characters make decisions that they make. You need to be able to describe your character's traits and attributes, and these traits can help you to develop theories about your character. So ultimately, we want to be able to develop a theory about our character. So you can understand your characters by stepping into the time period in which a character lives, and you try to see the world through your character's eyes. And that's why I had you get to get some information, research some information about the time period in which your book was written, so that you could understand what your character, their world that they were living in, and the things that they were experiencing, and the issues that they were facing. So trying to understand why a character makes the decisions that he or she makes, keeping in mind that the character's behavior is shaped by what's happening in the world in which they live, is really important. I want you to notice when different characters respond differently to one event and think about how the characters feel about the central issue in the book. So here, the central issue in Granny Judith's case is that you have slaves living on this plantation, and they're working hard every day for their master, and they are just one boat ride away from freedom. So let's take a look back on Granny Judith and some of the things that we've learned in the book so far. We've learned that Christmas John was born in this pine board cabin, and this is where they lived. And we know that Granny Judith loved to dye cloth material because she loved to sew. And we know that the color red was her favorite until it lured her across the ocean from Africa into a world of slavery here in America. So here in this scene, she was telling her grandson, Christmas John, that she was going to trust in him to start taking people from Kentucky across the Mississippi River into Ohio on this boat, which she was calling the Night Boat of Freedom. This was his first ride. We know a little bit about Christmas John's traits because he was scared to death. He was only 12 years old. He was a big hulk of a boy, but what she was asking him to do was to be extremely brave and to face his fears and to take Molly across to freedom. So this was his first boat ride across, and this is pretty much where we stopped because we had read up to this point, and he had headed over to Ohio, and he had no idea what he was going to face when he got there. So let's find out what he did face. It says, finally, I saw a tall light, and I pulled to it. Remember, he was looking for the lighthouse. Two men appeared from the shadows. One grabbed for the girl, the other for me. I thought we were caught, until a foghorn voice asked me, "You hungry, boy?" I shook my head no, unable to speak, and then I figured these men had to be the Ohio station masters. Just before I pushed off, I remembered to ask Molly what color dress she was wearing, because remember, it was dark and all he could see was her eyes. And Granny Judith is back praying, and she just wants to know what color Molly wore to freedom. Molly says blue. She came back with her whispered answer. It was the only word she said all night. And later, when I told it to Granny Judith in our cabin, it made her smile, something beautiful. Okay, so I really am excited about this last sentence that I just read. Later, when I told it to Granny Judith in our cabin, that means he makes it back safely, and he gets to talk to Granny Judith again. All right, so let's keep reading. I hope you can see these pictures because the illustrations are beautiful. After the first trip, I didn't sleep easy for weeks, and then I saw no one was any the wiser to what I had done, meaning that nobody knew what had happened, so he started to be okay with that. He was still afraid that someone was going to find out. By and by, I got to like the idea of helping others cross the river. Granny Judith did too, saying as long as we had each other, we'd get back where we were a bit longer. Soon I was making 3 and 4 trips a month. Sometimes I took 2 people, sometimes a whole boatload. They'd meet me in the open on the black nights of the moon and give me a password from the Bible, Menair. Then I'd row them across the river in that old boat that became my friend. Night after night it kept me in my secret safe, and I'd hurry back in the dark, boat and me making it to shore just as the morning star lit the sky. "What color is freedom tonight, Christmas John?" Granny Judith would ask. When I'd sneak back into our cabin, I'd tell her yellow, indigo, green, the colors worn by people in the night, people I could touch but never see. So Granny is envisioning all these different colors, and she takes the colors of these individuals and what they're wearing, and she's sewing them. She's putting together a quilt that represents everyone's color of freedom. One day I saw Granny Judith cooking up colors in her old pot, dyeing cloth. She said she had had a dream vision to make quite a quilt and stretch out the freedom colors in pretty squares like a rainbow bridge from side to side. "When there's only 2 squares left to finishing our work, we'll be done here." "Then Christmas John," she shivered, leaning closer, "Dream says we got to get ourselves over the river, 'cause the danger's gonna grow awful." So those last 2 squares are gonna be her color of freedom and Christmas John's color of freedom. Black moon by black moon, I made the river trips, and square by square, Granny Judith's quilt grew. Soon a whole year had passed. Master had me working in the fields now, and I had to take bigger chances to sneak off. Then one night, about July, when the green corn was ripe enough to eat, I stepped out of the boat, and I heard bloodhounds baying close by. I hit up a tree, shaking so badly I could hardly hold on to the dogs left. Thank the Lord, Granny Judith had sewn little pouches stuffed with ground-up Indian turnip and tied them on my feet. The root smelled like strong pepper and kept the dogs from knowing my secret. "You'd surely have been killed," Granny Judith cried when I told her about the dogs. Then she held the quilt in the pine knot light. There were only 2 squares missing to bridge the cloth end to end. "Put this on," Granny Judith said as she handed me a fine new shirt she'd woven and dyed. In the low light, her needle jumped silver, up and down, as she sewed a new patch on the quilt. It was the color of my shirt, turkey red. "It's your freedom color," she smiled, "'cause tonight you gotta row yourself to safety, Christmas John." "But where's your quilt patch?" Granny Judith I'd ask. "We're going together." "That's foolish talk, child," she said and shook her head. "Morning star's nearly here, and those dogs are all about. I'd get you caught for sure. Slow you down." Granny Judith put the near-finished quilt into my hands and pressed her cheek to mine. "You take my night colors to the freedom side where they belong, and don't you cry for me, Christmas John." Her voice grew strong. "'Cause love don't stop at a river, and no river's wide enough to keep us apart." And she hugged me hard, and she gentled me out the door with my heart aching until I thought that it would burst. So, of course, I'm going to stop right there. And I want you to think just for a second on Granny Judith's character. First of all, she feels scared and she's very worried for John, but she's smart and she's brave. She saves John's life with the turnip pouches she made for John. She's willing to give up her chance at freedom just to ensure John's, and she's self-sacrificing, altruistic, because she tells John to go without her because she knows that the dogs may be able to track him if she goes. If I was her, I'd be so sad to see my only grandson leave me behind. So, if we think on John as well, John is brave, and John is self-sacrificing, and he enjoys helping people. So all these things that we've learned about these two characters' personality, their personalities have been shaped by the issues that's going on around them, slavery, and helping people to get out of this slavery. So what I want you to do today when you read is I want you to step into your character's shoes, and I want you to think from their perspective, and I want you to ask, okay, what's the central issue that's going on? And how you think your characters felt about the issue according to the things that they're doing and according to their personality. Let me see if I can find your notebook entry real quick for you and pull this up, because I want you to see what you're going to do. So today, you basically are going to have a little box on your notebook entry where you are going to jot down what you think or how you think the issues that your character is facing is affecting their personality. And, well, I can't get it to open for some reason. It's not wanting to open. There we go. So in this particular box right here, you're going to list your characters and you're going to talk about some of the issues that they're facing, and then you're going to tell me how you feel these issues are affecting their personality and how they're developing possibly different personality traits. Like John at first was extremely scared, but he became very brave. He became bold, and he became confident that he could lead these people to freedom because of what he was having to do. Then you are going to add events to your timeline from your reading and your discussion. So if you have any dates that you want to add, you could add them here. Here you could just list some of the events. If you don't need this bottom row, you can just highlight it and you can delete the row. Last week when I had given you the line with the little vertical slashes on it, you couldn't type in it. So we're going to try using this table. Modify the table any way you want. You can do that by, if you don't need the second column, you can just highlight it and then you can double click with 2 fingers and you can say delete this column and it goes away. So you can modify it however you want. Then after you have updated your timeline with the events that's going on in your story that you from your reading this past time, and you can put this together with your group, get everybody's thoughts on it. Then I want you to go and transfer your information from your notebook entries on your characters, your setting, your timeline, all this information about your time period. I want you to transfer all this onto your slides. This says that your slides are due Wednesday. They're actually not due until Friday. So we will make that change for you. Your book you should be finished reading your book by Wednesday. But the slides are due Friday, so you can even work on these remotely at home as you gather your information. So have a good time finalizing your book club project.